Steve, we'll get domestic matters out of the way, so to speak, bit of housekeeping. Obviously, we heard yesterday that you'll have a date with the FA disciplinary panel. You can't say a lot, I know, but are you disappointed that it's coming out?
Well, I think when you look at it afterwards, you get caught up in the emotion of it all, and maybe you say things that you shouldn't have said, but I still stand by what I said. We've lost a point against a very good Tottenham team to an awful penalty decision that went against us. So it's very, very difficult to try and just keep the lid on it, but I think I've got until Monday to respond, so once everybody's calmed down, which is the usual case, then we'll answer the charge and put my case forward.
I suppose the problem is football's a fairly emotional game, isn't it? And if you're going to be asked questions immediately after...
Well, of course you are, and the hard thing for us all is it's within half an hour of the game, so it's part of our duty, as they call it. I wouldn't want to say anything and come out in the cameras and say nothing, but there you go. I've been in it a long, long time, and maybe I've said one or two things which I shouldn't have done and out of turn, and I've upset a few people. Then of course you apologise.
Have you decided at this point whether you'll accept the charge or
I'm just going to go and see my secretary now, and I'll go and see Matt, the secretary, and see what the actual letter it says. I've never really studied it yet, so I'll go and read the letter and see what I've actually did say. But I better not say any more on it, had I? Could be for a double charge.
Probably best to move on.
Yeah.
We've just spoken to Jake Livermore. Obviously, you brought him to Hull this season on loan from Tottenham. He's had some quite interesting things to say about younger English players generally at high-profile clubs. If they want to play football, then perhaps following the route he's taken is the way forward. How much of a problem is that for English football generally?
Well, it's a big debate. It's a big debate what's going on at the moment. When you look at the Premier League, I think it was only last week that 30% playing were English. There's only 3 English managers in the Premier League at the moment. So it is a problem that we have got, and clubs have spent millions over the years on the academies, and you see the infrastructure of the academies. So we're a victim of our own success a little bit, really. The emergence of the Barclays Premier League all around the world is the most watched football by everybody, and we've got an unbelievable product which everybody enjoys. The problem is that, are we still going to be producing the English players to go with that, because we're attracting the biggest and best players in the world now are coming to our top teams. So it's going to be difficult for any young lad coming through. So it is a big, huge debate that we're having. Are we producing enough, and which way forward for the English players is going to be the best way?
And on your own front, of course, going to Wednesday night's game, you were without 5 first-team players, I think, through injury. Jake Livermore obviously wasn't available. How much of a concern is that injury list right now? Yeah,
well, it's getting better, thankfully. Jake will obviously come back into the squad. We've got Brady and Aluko are the main ones. Of course, we know McGregor and Chester are going to be out for another 2-3 weeks at least. So hopefully it'll get better. That's the one thing where you do need a bit of luck, and certainly we were a bit depleted. I think that was my huge frustration last week. We were depleted. The team we put up a hell of a show, and unfortunately, with the penalty decision going against us the way it did, cost the team of a worthy point.
And of course, you come up against the Sunderland side this weekend that weren't involved in midweek cup action, so they've had a few extra days rest as well.
Well, it certainly helps. But there we have it. I can afford to make 2-3 changes and freshen this up a little bit. But the team are playing well at the moment, really, really well. We've been, twice to London in 3 days, and in both occasions put up a really, really good performance. So we need again tomorrow. It's a big, big ask for us in what's now turned into a big, big game. So let's hope we'll be fresh enough. As I said, I'll be able to freshen the team up a bit. So let's hope we're ready.
And I know you'll be professional and say, well, it's just another game, got to concentrate on Hull. But it is Sunderland. Is there a little bit of you that really would relish being able to get one over them?
Well, it's in the human nature, isn't it? That of course. I was bitterly disappointed the way it ended, and I'll never forget that day at Wigan, when the crowd turn on you and all the rest of it. And I wouldn't want any manager to go through that. And looking back on it now, maybe it was a mistake. Being where I'm from and a Newcastle fan, Some, I wouldn't say that's the utmost reason, but for a lot, they couldn't quite hack that, you know. So it's all gone, it's disappeared, it's gone, and we get on with football and we move on like I have done. And but it was desperately disappointing at the time.
What about Sunderland that come here now, because they've got a new manager?
Well, again, they've got a new manager
as well.
Yeah, they've had a great win, which will give everybody a lift. If you're going to win one, if your first game in charge or your second game in charge, your first game at home, you get a win against Newcastle. Believe me, it gets you off onto the right footing. They've got to get through a period of change. 14 new players in the summer, 2 managers in the matter of weeks or months. They've got to have a sustained path of calmness, I would have thought, and of course they need a few results for them to go that way. So after tomorrow, let's hope they do that.
Is it a good or bad time to catch them?
Well, we're playing well. I'm only interested in us, and we're playing very, very well at the moment. Even though we haven't got the results, I've been delighted the way we've played twice against Spurs and at Everton. We've been to some difficult places and played particularly well. So let's hope the level of performance stays high, because if it does, then we've got every chance.
Well, you both beat Newcastle then, so what does that tell you about the respective sides, Steve?
Well, you know that there's never going to be an easy game, and as I said, they've been buoyed by the result last week. If they ever needed a result to kick-start them, beating Newcastle had done them all the world good. So we have to be ready for that, but we're at home. We've been playing particularly well, as I've said lately, and we must keep the same level of performance up there, and if we do, then we'll be okay.
You talked about the terrible emotions you went through during what turned out to be the end of your time at Sunderland. What's the difference between the Steve Bruce that ended his time in Sunderland and the Steve Bruce of now, the manager of Hull City?
Well, as I've said, maybe looking back on it, you take time to look back on it, and as I said, maybe in hindsight, you know, going back there was arguably a mistake. Being from where I'm from, being a Newcastle fan as a boy, some would never forgive that. However, you know, as I've said repeatedly, I was desperately disappointed after finishing 10th. I thought I might have got a bit more time. You know, 10th, I think, is probably the 3rd highest finish in nearly 50, 60 years maybe. So I thought I would get a bit more time, but it didn't happen. So you move on, and thankfully Hull gave me the opportunity to get back to work again, and always when you get sacked, the one thing you want to do is come back out fighting and show people what you're about again. And thankfully the club here have given me that opportunity, and touch wood, it's going okay at the moment.
Were there any good moments at Sunderland when you were manager there?
I think what summed me time up there, I had my worst defeat of my career, losing the derby to Newcastle, and 2 weeks later we beat Chelsea 3-0 at Stamford Bridge, which was arguably the highlight. But as I said, finishing 10th and finishing above Newcastle, for me wasn't a bad achievement, but there you go, you know, get off to a poor start the following season, and you're on your way.
How has Poyet changed their side, do you think, after that win against Newcastle?
Well, he's looked, from me to go from the outside, he's brought back the people he's familiar with, and when you make something like 14, 15 changes in a summer, it is very, very difficult to bed them very, very quickly. And people, especially foreign players, will need time to adapt. So he's gone back to the ones, your Bardsleys, your Catamoles, your Colbacks, the boy up front who's a very, very good player, Fletcher. So he's gone to the ones that he's known, and they've produced a result for him. So, as I said, any time they need a result, they've got it last week.
What about your side, Steve? You said you might freshen it up with the lads that are going to come in and freshen that side up for you.
Well, certainly Huddleston and Livermore and Sagbo will come into the equation. The one thing, they've run 1,000,000 miles the other night again, so I'm going to take training this morning and see how we are. I have got the luxury of, as I've said, of bringing 3 or 4 in for who didn't play the other night because of the game we've got at the weekend. So they'll be fresh enough, I hope, and give us the performance that we need.
Has the bonus for Hull City this year been the likes of Boyd, Myler, Quinn?
Well, they all played. 9 of them, I think, played. I think the side resembled the side that got us up last year. And I remember standing in the corridor saying most of them will get the chance to play in the Premier League, because I think people like your Boyds and your Mylers and your Rossinias are all capable of playing in the Premier League. And at the moment, they are making a hell of a fist of it and trying like hell to be Premier League players.